Oh, shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And oh, am I delighted, oh, am I thrilled to have an Irish Catholic in the neighborhood today. In the neighborhood, I should say. This is amusing to her. I don't know why. Religion is a funny thing. But this lovely creature we have in front of us, oh my God. She started with a fantastic band called October Project. She did 2 albums with them, then moved on to a solo career that has taken her from pop to folk to rock to opera, and all at the same time. She doesn't just do one and then move on to another. And her albums include things like The Other Side of Time, Love and Gravity, From the Dark Side of the Moon, where she covered all these Pink Floyd songs, including ones by that asshole Roger Waters, but we won't go there. Her latest is called Can't Get It Out of My Head, which is cover versions of Neil Young, Rolling Stones, Moody Blues, Mamas and Papas, and ELO. So won't you say hello to the one, the only, Mary Fahl. Shalom, Mary!
Shalom, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm good. I thought I scared you off there with all that introing. But how are you? How are you doing? You look fabulous. How's life?
Life is beautiful. I live up on a hilltop overlooking the Delaware. It's such a pretty day today, and I have a bunch of guinea hens outside. They just roam back and forth in front of the house, eating all the ticks. And
they're Italian, or
yes, we give them names like Donatello and Luigi, and
So I know chickens eat ticks. This is a good thing. I did not know this.
And hens and guinea hens do. Yeah, they do. They actually, I highly recommend it to anyone who has a tick problem, because it got rid of it for us.
Oh my God! I have 3 children with lice. Do you think they would work on that if I put the chicken? No,
I don't. I think you need a topical cream for that. But
I have tons of those, but for different things. By the way, did I mention that even though you are looking at the lovely Mary Fahl right now, you can see her in person in New York, and it's happening this Wednesday evening at City Winery. It's over on 11th Avenue and 15th Street in Manhattan. So, and she is, of course, pushing her recent album, Can't Get It Out of My Head. Let me ask you, the wanting to do what we would call a cover album, because you've written your own songs, you also OP, but why a cover version album now?
Well, it was the lockdown. I had lost my mother and my sister, not due to COVID, but life happens. And I was very depressed. And I felt like I had no family anymore. Like where is everyone gone? Like, the 2 most important women in my life. And so the only way I dig myself out of a hole is to take on a project. And I started thinking about musically, what was home for me? What was home? And I started thinking about those days in the old upstairs bathroom of our house that had the good acoustics. I love a good bathroom or a good stairwell.
Oh, I love a good bathroom.
I love a good to sing. And so anyway, I would go up there and lock the door, and that's where I learned to play guitar. And most of the songs on this album were songs that I played on my guitar in the upstairs bathroom at like age 12, 13, 14, just as I was starting to develop my own taste in music. I had older siblings I was a little kid in the 60s and 70s, but they were teenagers in the 60s. So I was so lucky. I had a sister with all the greatest female singers: Petula Clark, Nina Simone, Dusty Springfield, the Supremes. That was one side of the house. And then on the other side were my 2 brothers. One was the Proud guy. Yes, he listened to Pink Floyd.
I thought you meant he was a Proud Boy, which is very, very different.
No, he wasn't a Proud Boy. Yeah, we just aren't going to go there today because it's upsetting. Yeah. And also my oldest brother was the folkie in the house. And so all of that was this incredible, and of course my parents, who had their record collection, which was a lot of Herb Alpert.
Oh.
and the
I love those covers. Gotta love those covers.
all parents. No, you never forget those covers of those records. And every parent in the United States had a Herb Alpert record. So anyway, and you know, because you had the giant console in the living room, always huge, the size of a Buick, everyone would just play their records constantly. And so I grew up as a little kid listening to all of that and singing along with it. So I think I sound a little different than most current singers, because I was listening to singers from so long ago. People like Mama Cass. I loved the Mamas and the Papas. I had to cover them. And
we do Got a Feeling from
I did Got a Feeling. Yeah. That's maybe my favorite cut on the record. And so I what it did for me was I just had to get myself in a happy place, and making this record just brought me back to these songs that I fell in love with then, and I never ever lost that love. You know, when you fall in love with a song, it's for life.
The entire catalog of Wildman Fisher from me, and just every single song he ever did, especially.
So,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And so early Neil Young, those first couple of Neil Young records, I just, as I say, I mainlined those records constantly. And Judy Collins, of course. I mean, so many of us from my age range are so influenced by her. And, you know, ELO is a little bit later, more into my high school years, but I loved them. I had to put a song on. And I did love Pink Floyd. And of course I did Dark Side of the Moon. And you know,
I know this was an album from already a bunch of years ago, but I have to say, you know, you've got into, I don't know what drugs you might or probably weren't on, but what is Pink Floyd? You have to wait for like 8 minutes of, let's hear some noise. There's a song coming. Oh, no, that sounds like no, a little more. Oh, here's a song, yay! And then more 8 minutes of ambience.
So that was a huge challenge when we made that record. It's like, what are we gonna do? There's giant sections here, and so what my two producers said, well, Mary, why don't you come up with some chants? And I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. And what was fun for me was that I got to dig in to all my other interests, you know, and I love comparative religion and ancient history and all kinds of things like that. And so I started looking through all my books and for example, I needed something to cover giant sections in Us and Them. So I thought, well, what is Us and Them really? It reminds me, I know we're not going to talk about Roger Waters, but yes, but I know he's very interested in World War I. And so I started to think about that and the implications of it. And you know how this is the way that creativity works. And I thought World War I and then World War II. And I was thinking, wait a minute, it's the military industrial complex he's talking about. And I thought the bomb, that was really the beginning of the end. And then I thought, what did Robert Oppenheimer, he apparently, in addition to being a physicist, was a Sanskrit scholar. Okay, so when he first beheld the atomic bomb, he muttered something in Sanskrit, and what he muttered in English is I have become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Holy shit, bomb! But they don't quote him on that one. They quote the other, yeah.
Right, and so I thought, let's look. I happen to have an old copy of the Bhagavad Gita. Not that I'm an expert on it, but I had it in my bookshelf. So I opened it up to look up that part. And the thing about the Bhagavad Gita is everything rhymes, which I didn't know until I started looking. And I looked up what he said, and it was Utu Samavada Sekaham Upavaskabhavisi. And it was So I put that in Us and Them, and we layered it and layered it and layered it. And then just to throw in a little more conspiracy, I layered that over with Novus Ordo Seclorum, Hail the New Order of the Ages. I thought I have to do it because it's perfect. And so things like that happened all throughout this record. And in the beginning, I couldn't do, there's all, the guy that was the doorman at Apple Records was where they got most of that voiceover from on the original Dark Side of the Moon. They just would ask him questions. He's no Cockney guy, He's like, oh, like, what do you think about death? Oh, now, and they just took little clips from him. So I thought, I can't do that. So I thought, what does this record remind me most of? And I thought it reminds me most of The Wasteland and other poems by T.S. Eliot. So I just thought, well, I'll just use T.S. Eliot. So I quote.
Or any other anti-Semitic poet. Go ahead. Yeah, right.
But what else? It works, and especially time present and time past. I've used that right in the beginning of time, and so all of that worked, and I had so much fun making that record, and that record got me out of a depression after Sony Classical. Everybody there was fired. My contract wasn't renewed, and it's like, okay, well, dig yourself out. And I got a new manager, and a couple of new producers, and we just, again, it was just this labor of love, and that's what this new record, and what I love. Something that I did an interview with a guy named Phil Ashton. He does Now Spinning magazine. I don't know if he's out of England. Anyway, he said he and his wife, they didn't know me, but they got sent this album and they began to play it over and over. And he said, when I listen to this record, it's like the sun comes out. And that's what I wanted it to do for people. That's what it did for me. It got me out of my funk. And
well, can I ask you, first of all, is your dad still alive, or did he pass?
No, my dad was born in 1916. He passed in 1998. So that was a long, and natural causes. And my mother lived till 102 and died 2 years ago. And so yes, yeah.
And if you don't mind, why did
I've been around a while, I've been around.
I'm not asking you. I was just curious, if you don't mind, why did your sister pass? Because that's heavy, and I'm kind of wondering, because your brothers are okay, right? Your brothers are alive and well. You mentioned them.
I have I have a wonderful older brother who's still alive and doing very well. But my oldest brother. And I think this also had a huge influence on certain songs I write. My oldest brother was a handsome boy, and he was killed at the age of 23. He was Special Forces in Vietnam, and he was a National Merit Scholar, and smart, and a really interesting person. And so I never understood him. He always listened to nothing but peacenik, peacenik that's what they used to call it at the time. Lots of Phil Oakes and Tom Paxton. That's what he listened to all the time. But he liked being a soldier, and he was really good at it. And he learned what I discovered recently, which is really interesting. I'm married to someone with grown children. And my husband's oldest daughter is married to a career soldier, another very smart guy. And I told him about this. He said, "Oh, I know what it was." He said, "You have no idea the lure of total immersion in a culture." He said, and this is a guy that did the same thing my brother did. He was dealing directly with troops in Afghanistan, Afghani troop. He spoke Farsi. He lived with them. And that's what my brother did in Vietnam. And he loved the Vietnamese people. He spoke the language. He ate the food. And he said, it gets really addictive. It gets addictive to be that total immersion in a far off land.
Well, and I'm making a legitimate comparison here. You talk to Orthodox Jews who study Talmud. What is
Yeah.
it? It's coming out of the real world. And then, how big is a cubit? Is it 4.5 inches? Is it this much? How when they built the ark, and you argue for 6 hours and don't look up.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like tunnel vision. But
Yeah.
generally you don't get killed unless there's a pogrom.
Yeah. But again, it's that immersion into another. But anyway, it was very interesting. So that was my oldest brother. He was killed in 1972, and we got the word on Mother's Day. And I've never written a song about that, but there's a song waiting to be written. There is, but I can't go there yet. And you know what I mean? It's so. I had a big family, 6 kids overall, and I have a beautiful younger sister, and that's my I didn't get married until very late in life.
And I want to ask you about this because you married a marine biologist / oceanographer type guy. I don't know.
Yes, he is. So Rich works at Rutgers, and he's been there for a long time. And he's a deep sea oceanographer, but his specialty is those undersea volcanoes. And so he's been down in, if you've ever been to Woods Hole in Massachusetts, there's that little submarine called Alvin. And he has been in Alvin down to the very bottom of the ocean over 100 times and been back. So he studies. He's a marine ecologist, really. So he studies the life forms on those volcanoes. And what happened when he was a young guy, a post-grad, he just was lucky and got the offer to go down on one of the first expeditions to not just the bottom of the ocean, but there's the crack in the Atlantic, the rift. Well, there's
it's like the Tuchus.
There's a deeper ocean, and this thing goes down there, and they expected to find nothing. But what they found, it was teeming with life, and teeming with life that was not based on photosynthesis, but on what they discovered was chemosynthesis, a very harsh environment. And so for him, it was the discovery of, it made his career. And so he spent the next, 20, 30 years studying all of those life forms and going down over and over again. And so, and it's funny. I never would have met him if I hadn't gotten out of my own little circle. And I decided when I turned 50 that I thought, I'm going to do one of two things because I need to bust open my life. And I'm going to either go to somewhere in South America and try ayahuasca, because I had been watching these ayahuasca monologues and they seemed fascinating. But then I kept seeing everybody itch, like they thought,
you don't need ayahuasca for that.
That doesn't look pleasant to me. I'll pass.
Just next to one of my children with the lice.
Exactly.
That's fine, yes.
Or I'm going to learn to grow a garden. And I didn't know anything about it. And I also wanted to learn to grow a garden biodynamically, which is a little different, little added something, but it doesn't use chemical fertilizers. So I thought, and I didn't know anything. So it's funny. The theme of my life is climb out and find some giant project. And so that's what I did. And through that, I met some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life, people that grow a garden. I mean, and because you can't learn how to grow a garden from a book. I make so many mistakes, but you have to reach out and talk to people. And it's always like the old guys that'll tell you what to do with the tomatoes. Like, no, you're doing it all wrong. You gotta beat them up. You gotta really cut them up. They like that. They like it. Or they'll say, no, honey, you're doing it all wrong. So it was wonderful. And through sort of that, in a weird confluence of events, I met my husband, who also had a garden. And and also he lived in a place with I had been living in a little cottage in the town where I grew up with that had this waterfall and had my garden. And he lived in a place with a waterfall and a garden. And we were just, we were just meant for each other. And it's been, we just had our, what is it? 12th anniversary of being married. And we've been together for 15 years. It's just went by. And we were just saying, it's like these have been, I have to say, the happiest years of my life.
Joy, boy. I mean, because
Really, no,
you had
really.
enough time in
Yeah.
2020.
But they happen. They happen because my early life, I was so ambitious and just all like I was tunnel visioned, and I had to get a deal. I had to get a deal, and nothing was going to stop me. And then you hit around age 50, and you think to yourself, what have I devoted my life to? I mean, that's it. I mean, you have a couple of CDs under your belt, and so and I always thought that for the right person, I'd be a really good wife. I knew I would, but it had to be the right person, and I wasn't going to settle for someone that my
Oh,
husband
you're
is.
so not Jewish. Because Jews, they come out of the womb. Oh, who can I settle with?
I know, but see, but on the other hand, I understand that because that's about propagation of the species, and it's very important. It's very important. I mean, honestly, I wish I had found someone young. But I didn't. I found the person I needed to find, and I took a long time to mature. I really did. I look back, and I wasn't fully baked until I was much older, and so I was ready for someone like my husband, and
I do
he's
wonder in terms of the maturity and stuff. When your first big splash, you're on Epic Records with October Project, but you
oh
didn't get to
God,
do
yeah.
your own. You didn't get to write your own songs or sing your own songs, which was, I guess, was a sticking point, and it was not perhaps a very happy time or celebrate or.
It was an interesting and but odd setup, and not. I mean, Renaissance had the same setup. You remember Annie Haslam in Renaissance? I love Annie.
She's your neighbor or something. She's down the road, right?
Neighbor. She's my neighbor, and we have Annie and I have so many strange parallels in our life. We both had the same manager. We both signed to the same label. We both had the same guy. That's like weird. And then she drives up, and we both sang. We both had a voice that could handle classical music. And then Annie drives up to have dinner at our house, and we have the same big Volvo wagon, like exactly the same. So it's weird the parallels, but she's a wonderful singer, and she's got Annie Haslam has that signature voice. You know it with three notes. It's her. And anyway, yeah, it was. But Annie had an outside with Renaissance had an outside lyricist. So that's another one of the parallels with Annie and I. But it worked out well for them. But in our case, it just didn't work out. It was an odd setup. So
But there's no residual. I mean, you even get a long distance Christmas cards, or it's just like
well,
far away part of your life, and
it's also that unless you're a huge star, and unless you're taking the publishing from writers where you're getting the money. It's what famous like. There's a famous story about Elvis, and he wanted to do "I Will Always Love You," and Dolly wouldn't give him the publishing, and that was a big decision on her part because Elvis was huge. She would have made, but she's like, I just can't give my publishing away. And of course, in the end, she was right because then she had the huge hit with it. And but that's what famous people do. But so other than that, I wasn't famous. If you don't write, there's no income. So when I left October Project, I had to go back to a day job. I had no money. I couldn't pay my rent at all.
You were waitressing for a bit. Did you waitress then, or was that before?
My rent. What?
You were waitressing for a bit, or was that before?
Oh, that was when I just got out of college.
Okay, yeah.
And then I did several different things. Ultimately, I became a recruiter in the magazine publishing business. And that was where I was able to suddenly pay my rent. And I was able to pay a band, hire a band, pay them well, find really good people. And I was writing songs, not good songs at the beginning, but I got that was a very, very scary endeavor for me because the bar had been set. Did you ever see October Project live back in the day?
I have not, although the producer of this program, Dave, saw them a couple of times back in the.
Really? Back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah, and
it was around the time of the second album,
right.
Falling from the thing. Yeah.
Right. We did a wonderful show in New York at Town Hall. But that bar was set very, very high. So to start to write on your own, that was frightening. And you just have to be comfortable with being bad at first, and you get better and better, and you start to work muscles. And because I'm a singer and I know what a good song is, I didn't just sing my own stuff because, well, it's my stuff and I must be good. No, it had to get better and better, and it had to be very singable. And so ultimately, I started to get better. I worked with very good people. I learned a little something from everyone I worked with, and then I got comfy with it. And then I hired a band. I was making money. I was putting it into my career, and one thing led to another. And the interesting part too is that I thought, because I was, I don't know, in my late 30s, I didn't think I'd ever really get another deal again. I mean, I wanted one and I was working hard, but everybody told me it'll never happen for you. And I thought, well, if that's the case, then I might as well sing songs I love. So I would do this mixture in my show of my songs, some October Project, and then also I love music. I love medieval music. I especially love music from medieval Spain. And I don't know, are you familiar with Ladino music?
Just the language, which is one of the 18 languages I don't speak.
You don't? Okay.
I've heard of Ladino, yes.
Their music, the music of Sephardic Spain, is some of the most beautiful music you will ever hear. It's very sexy. It's kind of got the gypsy, but the minor keys, the great Middle Eastern
minor key. We can't live without them. Yes,
minor keys, and so it's got like this weird, and it's got a thing. And so I started looking at all of that music from medieval Spain, the Ladino music, the Arabic music, and it opened up a whole window for me. I started performing a little bit of that in my shows. And lo and behold, again, because I thought, well, nobody's ever going to give me a deal. Bingo, that's what did it. And
it wasn't just somebody giving you a deal. It was the guy who runs the Metropolitan Opera now.
That guy, yeah, and that guy. And so it's so funny because they were sending scouts down. And so they called me up, and it happened, and I happened to have to do the audition 1 week after 9/11. And I went up there, and I don't know what came over me, because I've done those sorts of things before, and they're excruciating. They really are. Suits come into the room and they're like this, and they don't want to like you. And I don't know what, some strange sense of peace came over me. I don't know what, I'll never understand it. But there I was, and so I'm singing. I sang a couple of my songs, and then they said I sang a medieval song called Ben Indi Habibi, which is sort of a mixture of Spanish and Arabic, and even a little Hebrew in there. And so it's from Andalusia, 11th century. So I sing this, and they're like, "Do you know anything classical?" I'm thinking, yes, but I'm not Renee Fleming, right? So I asked the pianist with me, "Do you know Nessa Norma?" and can you play it in this key? And he's like, sure. So I sang Nessun Dorma for them, and I was told later that that's what got me the deal. And I still to this day, it's very hard for me to wrap my head around that because I don't sing it like an opera singer. I don't sing it. I'm not a soprano. I sing like a tenor, basically. That's why I know all those songs. And
I got my rabbi job being able to sing Classical Gas by Mason Williams. So
are you joking? Oh, you're so.
So yeah, I do it in a cantorial sort of a way. I kind
Do you sing?
you just heard me sing. No,
Okay.
that's all you need to hear, believe me. But I want to sing the praises of Mary Fahl. I want to spend a few more minutes with you if you have a little time.
I do. All I have to do is make dinner. That's all I have to do tonight. That's it.
What is Mary Fahl making for dinner tonight?
Well, it's we eat very simply in this house. Probably a little chicken with a reduction sauce and some asparagus, and just a protein and some green vegetables.
Does your husband refuse to eat fish because of what he does for a living? Or
No, he loves fish. We have a lot of fish, and now we eat simply, but we're just starting to get our vegetables in now. So we have a garden, and that's what I love about I love the summer because all the green beans come in and the lettuces and a garden is a beautiful thing.
Well, a beautiful thing is also to go see Mary Fahl this Wednesday night, May 31st.
With my full band.
Oh, it isn't just you on the guitar. It's a whole big schmear.
Oh, schmear. I love that word.
Is it the Ola Bell people, or you have a different band now?
Oh, no, I have a whole, no. God bless them. They went on to do their own thing, and they're all of them went on to do wonderful things. One of them is with the Lumineers now. And one of they were they were great. And no, this is a band that my producer put together for me. They're fabulous guys, and I won't play with anybody where if I don't like them personally. I have to really love them as people. So they're great, and we do all the songs from my new record. We do some October projects. So if you are an October Project fan, I will do your favorites and a couple of the songs I wrote. It's how
come you never do from your solo album? My favorite song is "Want To." I love that. That's such a beautiful song. Want To. It's never made.
Well, you know what it is? You can't do them all, and
you don't have to do them all. Do the one I like. What's
okay.
important in this world?
Are you coming to my show?
Well, I'm kind of far away from New York at the moment, so I'm not.
Okay. Well, sometime when we're out near you, and you write to me if I have a show near you, and I will make the band learn Want To, because I love that song.
Thank you. I'm just saying.
Songs that when I wrote it, I felt like this is a good song. This is it. This is one of the first songs I wrote that I felt was good. But I love that song. And anyway, this has been. So I could talk to you.
Well, a few more minutes before the chicken can wait. Just a couple more minutes if you have. It's just a chicken. Come on. You can always call ordering from McDonald's.
Dinner isn't due for another hour and a half. So I'm.
Oh well, yeah. Oh, I got look at all these questions I got for.
I'm good. You can. I know I talk a lot, but I'm up here on a mountaintop. I don't, other than my husband, I don't have a lot of speech. Is that well? There he is. Speak of the devil.
Yeah. Hello to you. Hello, Rich. How you doing?
Good. Be good to her.
I absolutely. Well, that was a nice fella right there, Rich, sonographer. Yes. So, Mary, let me remind people. I don't know if I mentioned again that it was City Winery is where you're
City Winery. Yes, City Wine. All you have to do is go to www.citywinerynyc.com. Tickets are there. It's Wednesday night. If you're coming off of work and you work in New York, you can just come down. The doors, I believe, are at 7. Rich, what time are the doors?
I'll find out. Hold on.
Okay, I think they're at 7. Anyway,
the doors haven't been the same since Jim Morrison died. I don't know why. Nobody's coming. They're coming for you.
But you can get, they have wonderful food at City Winery. You can have your dinner there. They have great wine there, so you can make an evening of it.
I should call it City Dinnery then, because I'm not much of a drinker, but City Dinnery, I'll come for dinner.
No, they have wonderful food there, really good food.
And if I can't get to see you, by the way, on May 31st, you are coming back in November. I know there's already on your calendar, your schedule, you're coming back to City Winery. Do I have the date on that?
Oh, well, I'm going to do,
yeah.
I'm doing, that's a show on a Sunday, and it is the Joni Mitchell tribute. So it's going to be me doing 3 or 4 songs and lots of other really, really good artists doing Joni. And
what is your favorite Joni Mitchell song, Mary Fahl?
Oh, okay. There's so many to choose from, but my favorite is from the Hejira record, and it's a little bit later, but it's
Song for Sharon? Or
Sharon. I would love to cover that, but I freaking need an orchestra and a chorus with me to do that. But Song for Sharon, that's the one for me.
I can do the background. Dum dee 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 dum dee 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 dee.
Yeah. Could you come in and multiply yourself? Yeah.
Give me a per diem. I can go eat at the City Dinnery, and then.
I know everybody loves Blue. I know. Well, you do all the. I mean, I love it too, but and I actually loved the record after Blue. For the
Roses that's that's my favorite too.
Oh, that record. So the last time I did the Joni tribute there, I did Woman of Heart and Mind. And I did that one. I did Cold Blue Steel and Sweet Fire.
Yeah.
And those were the 2 I learned. I had the Joni book where they taught you the tunings. So you have to do all these weird tunings. And of course, I did both sides now because I recorded
your version of that is pretty spectacular, I have to say. There's a couple of videos on that on YouTube, and it's yeah.
Well, it's hard to make Joni.
Doors at 6:30.
Doors at 6:30.
Doors at 6:30.
7:30.
Okay, show at 7:30. Show at 7:30, so you'll be home and in your jammies by 10:30 p.m. And but Joni is hard to make your own, especially if you're a female singer. But I think I accomplished it with both sides now. And the other one I covered of Joni on record that I recorded was Urge for Going, which is never on a record of hers ever.
Tom Rush, I think, made that one.
Tom Rush is the one that brought, but she never put it on, and I love that song. So that one too, it was she, anyway. So I actually don't know what I'm going to do yet. And if you have any suggestions, I'm wide open.
I mentioned before the whole catalog of Wildman Fisher. It's available. Merry-Go-Round, the Wildman Fisher story. My name is Larry. You could change it up. Okay. My name is Mary. My name is Mary. It's a magnificent song. Either that or some Shuby Taylor. You can take it. But let me ask you, have you ever heard back either from the new album or some of the covers that you've done before from original artists? Have you heard from either Joni or Judy Collins on both sides now?
No, Joni doesn't. No, no. Joni.
Right, maybe she no, but
and not Judy either. But who I did hear back from that was so moving to me that it wouldn't mean a hill of beans to anybody else but me. But Nick. So I covered, if you know an artist named Nick Drake from the early 70s.
He's a Riverman on the new album, yeah.
Beautiful. And Nick Drake is sort of a sacred cow, and anyone who loves him is like, no, don't do it. Don't cover him. You can't. But I thought, I love that song. I had to cover it. And I got not only a couple of letters, but the Nick Drake, I guess it's sort of whoever handles his legacy. His sister and the person, I got letters and they told me that that they hadn't been happy with any other covers of Nick Drake. And this is the first time they wrote me a beautiful letter and that I understood his spirit. And then they sent me, I'm looking up to see if I can find it up there in my bookcase. They sent me a copy of Nick's mother's poetry because it was a huge influence. Nick Drake had very interesting parents, and his mother was a poet, and a lot of
Okay, she used to sing her own.
she used to sing her own stuff.
Yeah.
And so they sent me a copy of the book and said, you know, we would love it if you would maybe try to put some of her songs to music. We think you have the spirit. And oh boy, that was.
Have you tried or have you attempted?
I've been looking at it. Yeah, it's you know, it would have, you know, and the other thing was that when I opened the book, and it wasn't like, you know, earmarked or anything like that, but I opened the book, it fell open to a poem for Mary. And you know when Dylan says, you know, he opens the book from the you know 15th century, and every one of those words rang true.
You glowed like burning coal, which is painful. Yes.
Burning coal, and that's what happened when I opened that book. And so I think it was like, Mary, we're handing it to you on a silver platter. Take it, okay? So yeah,
Wow.
it's something I'd be interested. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, the only other Nick Cave cover that really, if you've ever heard Lucinda Williams do "Which Will,"
Oh, well,
does
she does it well. You gotta love Lucinda. She's one of the people that at home I listen to.
Oh. Who
Lucinda
else do
Williams.
you listen? What is on your iPod pad thing?
Okay, who I listen to a lot that's over and over. I love Rufus Wainwright. I mean, talking about more current people, not the old stuff, but current
Well, it could
people.
be Hildegard von Bingen. I mean, whatever you were listening to.
Yes, I have her. I do have her there too, and I like Anonymous Four. I like that. You know, I love medieval music, and but I love Sufjan Stevens.
Oh yeah.
Sufjan Stevens. Oh my God, he's up here for me. And Laura Veers is another one. Veir. Do you know her? So
I know the Case Fears Lang whatever album that they did.
go back to just solo Laura Veers, and I have to say, her music hits me the way that French Impressionist music hits me, like Satie and Ravel hits me the same way. And she's not a great singer per se, but neither is Neil Young, or neither really is Dylan. But her songs are, well, I love them. I can hear them over and over again. And Iron and Wine, I love that sort of that neo folk. I like a lot of that stuff. That's kind of what I listen. And I love a lot of. Okay, we have to play a lot of classical music. We have to put a giant speaker outside every day for the guinea hens, because we were told by people that have guinea hens, listen, they like classical music, believe it or not, and we live really in the middle of the woods, and they get picked off here and there by owls and coyotes and foxes. And so to keep all of that away, you have to play music outside all the time. So we play, they like Mozart, they like a lot of Bach.
But they like it when these other animals don't like Mozart, Bach, and
no, it scares them away. So it scares away the owls and the foxes, and
I was not Schoenberg, but there you go. Yeah.
Okay, so I can, but after a certain point, it's like I can only take so much, and then I've got to switch over to something else, and so.
Well, can I ask you a total veering away from speaking of years? But when did you realize you could sing? Because probably as a kid you knew you had a voice. But when did you realize you had, you know, that kind of voice?
I always sang, yes, and I always sang along with all the records in the house. It was in kindergarten, and I had to do something for show and tell, and I didn't have anything for show and tell, and I thought, well, I could sing a song. So I ended up singing a song for the kids, and my teacher, Mrs. Schassler, lovely older lady, was like, oh, she's like, what? So she runs out of the room and she grabbed Mr. Stubbins, our principal, and she drags him in. She goes, "Now do it again." So I do it again. I start singing. And then he's like, "Oh, wait, hold it." And he runs down and he grabs it was the school nurse, but the school nurse was also his girlfriend. And so they dragged her in. And this one, I was like, "Oh, wow.
In kindergarten.
Why are those?"
A contralto then, or what?
Oh, I have no idea what I sounded like then. And then I think the teacher called my parents, apparently. And then they really began to, I wouldn't say encourage me, but my father would always make me sing at everything after that. Everything, which was sometimes, if other kids were around, was embarrassing because I didn't want to feel like I was a show off. And so I'd be like, "Dad, please don't make me do that." But I do it. And what happened when I was about 6, you mentioned earlier, we were Irish German Catholic family, and so my parents were very active in the church community. And so at one point, the General Motors choir came to our church to perform. General Motors, the car company, they had a big choir. They came in, and afterwards, my father especially was meeting and greeting them and talking to them and everything. And they were all having their cake and coffee after the concert. And he put me up on the table, and I was little. He put me up and he said, "You sing for these people, Mary. Show them what you can do." And I think I probably sang something from The Sound of Music. I suspect I probably sang "Climb Every Mountain," and like a little kid would sing it. But I sang it full out. I've always had a comfort level on stage. As they call it in comedy, I always had legs, so you could put me up there and it's like, all right, just sell it. And I did it. My father used to tell the story years later. He said, "They wanted you to join that chorus. They wanted you to, and of course you couldn't because you were too little. I was going to let you go." But yeah, no, and then after that, every year we'd have a big hoopla there was so many Irish people in our church that we would have a St. Patrick's Day big event concert, and they'd have all the dancers, and they'd have different people performing. Somebody do comedy. And from about that age on, every year on St. Patrick's Day, I would perform. And when I look back, I had no accompaniment. I used to just get up and sing a cappella. And you'd think they would have gotten me someone to play with me, but every year, that's what I did.
At some point, you decided, hey, this isn't just a gimmick. It isn't just my father showing me off. I'm going to make
because at the time, I didn't. And then I started playing, I got to be 11, 12. My grandfather bought me a guitar, and I started to play those things. And then I'd play at school, and I'd play at what's funny, too, is that I was always looking for ways, especially in junior high, to integrate singing with other things. So in French class, if you had to do a project, I really did this. I took Mama's and Papa's songs and I translated them into French. So for my project, I just remember, "Tous les filles sont jours, tous les filles sont jours, et le ciel est gris, et le ciel est gris. Je me suis promis, je ne suis pas." So I translated.
I'll bet you got an A, because it's a wonderful idea. You're laughing, but I think that's a great way to learn French, and I think
and even then, I loved singing in foreign languages, which obviously I still do on records. And I just, it was just a fun way to be able to sing. And yeah. And then I thought I would go into musical theater, but I didn't study it. I did all the plays in high school and stuff like that. But I studied medieval history and literature, and you know.
Well, you know, it was meant to, most people should not, if they want to make a living in this world, study medieval history. But for you, it ended up coming in a weird way.
In a weird way, it came in handy. And if things keep going as they are, I always say, you know, that paper I did on serfdom is going to come in real handy soon. So anyway, you know what I mean. So anyway, I tried to, when I got out of college, I started auditioning for things, and I got a few things here and there, but I had a deep voice. People always say you don't speak the way that you sing, but then it was even more. I always sang in a deep voice. I'm not sure why, but so there was no, there really weren't musicals that were meant for someone with a voice like me. Um, there just weren't. I mean, I wasn't a soprano, and it was always sopranos that got the work. Plus, you know, I had dyed my hair very dark, so I was sort of like a spooky looking girl with a dark voice.
Well, people
And
used to think you were goth when you weren't. There was always the goth.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I just, you know, and I didn't really know what I was doing in that world. So someday, before I leave this earthly plane, it would still be fun. I did get one thing. Years later, out of the blue, I was in it's at a very prestigious theater. It's 59 off 59, and they were doing a series called Brits on Broadway. And out of the blue, I got I got called in to audition because the guy that was the music director was living with a friend of mine, staying here from London. And my friend said, you know, have you thought about hiring Mary for this? And he's like, well, I don't know. And so the people, the showrunners met with me. We had a drink, and they said, you're perfect for this part. You're the character, you're Flo. And I'm like, I am? They go, oh God, yeah, you tell all these stories. That's Flo. So I ended up, so it was based on Woody Allen's short stories. Have you ever read any of his short stories?
All of them. All of them. Some of them make it to memory. Yes, of course I have. Look at me.
They're so silly and funny.
Yes, yes.
They're so funny, and that's so my sense of humor. And you know, you have to be kind of a like a silly funster to do that. So it was kind of a review. It had done very well. It won awards in London. So they brought the show over. So you have to play all these different parts. We all had to play the instruments. You know, that was a
Oh, so it was a
fact.
musical. It wasn't just short
Musical
films.
too. Oh yeah, and I got to sing beautiful songs. And it was a silly show, you know, and but a fun show. And I loved the regimentation of having to show up at the theater every evening, sit with the girls, you know, as you guys would say, kibitz, you know what I mean? Just sit there, you know, shoot the breeze and put your makeup on and do your hair. And I loved it. And the show didn't translate to New York. I think that in a weird way, the Brits responded better to that show. The New York audience, especially when you're doing previews, is an older audience, and an older audience that knows Woody Allen like their way, and they didn't get it. Whereas the Brits were coming from sort of a Monty Python-esque approach, so it worked for them, but it didn't.
It didn't work for he married his daughter.
Old people that get, you know, that buy the series tickets were like, what is this? You know, like, I don't understand. Anyway, but I had a ball, and it was all completely my sense of humor. And so anyway.
And the thing is also, no joke, that Broadway music is changing. So there are songs and shows by people like Maltby and Shire, or by David Yazbek now, that would, you know, have contralto stuff that would be in your wheelhouse or throat house. Or yeah, just saying.
Well, Angela Lansbury wasn't a soprano either, you know. So I always loved her on you know, the various musicals she did. Anyway, so and I was ready to go back to, I was doing all different kinds of jobs and recruiting and doing this and that. And um, I thought, this isn't working for my life. What am I going to do here? And just as I was I had applied to Columbia University. They have this postgraduate pre-med program that a dancer had told me about. And I had no science in college whatsoever. But I thought, well, if I can't work in singing, then what I'd most like to do, I'm interested in health. I still am. I'm interested in health and healing and all that kind of stuff. I'm really, really interested. And so I thought, well, maybe I could be a naturopath, or maybe I could be and so I applied and I got in because my grades were good at McGill. But what it would require, I'd have to work full time to support myself, and then I would have to take 2 years worth of math and science at Columbia. And I was ready to go. I had my loans. It would have been really hard.
How long ago was this?
I'm not math science oriented. You know what I mean? I wasn't a kid. I was in my late 20s.
So it was still a while ago. Okay.
Really, it was do or die. It was do or die. And then through Kismet and a friend of mine, I met Julie Flanders on Fifth Avenue in New York. And she stopped to talk to a friend of mine, and we all got to talking. And she invited me to her birthday the next night, and we became friends. And she said, she said, I'm really a songwriter, but I'm working at this job, and my boyfriend is really a songwriter, but he's doing this. And, I said, well, I really want to be a singer. And so she brought me out to meet her boyfriend at the time, who's been her lifetime partner.
Abel, yeah.
Well, I don't know what they do now, but that was her. And anyway, and they played me their songs, and I knew instantaneously that my voice was perfect for that. I had tried to audition for other bands, but most of the time when you do, the music is awful. And I just, sing with it like, ugh, no, and I didn't.
Imagine the moment they heard you, though. They must have gone like.
It was all, you just knew. And then we worked together for about a year, and then they brought Marina in, and that filled out the sound. And because our sound was so choral, which is, I think, one of the beauties of October Project, really beautiful harmonies. And we worked our asses off for 2 years, just left no, we developed our own sound. And then we began to play out in New York, and we were just really good. It was great musicianship. And then after 3 years, we got a deal with Epic. About a year and a half, then record companies began to come down and scout us, and dangle with us. And it was playing down at Cafe Chenet in the Lower East Side, East Village, Avenue A and 8th Street, and we began to have this huge following down there. And it was a happening at the time because Jeff Buckley was playing down there, beautiful singer, and lots of other people. And people were getting signed out of there. So we were one of the bands that basically got signed out of there. And then we made 2 records on Epic, and were dropped after the second record. They didn't feel that we had a hit. And that's that. They don't waste time. And so it was either, do I stay or do I go? And I didn't see any future with October Project. They wouldn't let me write ever. It's like, okay, I understand. And, if I'm going to make mistakes, I had to do it on my own time, my own money. And I did. And I was ferocious. There was just no way I wasn't going to do it. There was no way I wasn't going to make it happen. And I did. And then I got, it took a while, but I got the deal. And I was over 40 when I got that deal with Sony. And then everything, with Sony, the whole new management came in. It was, I think, BMG, whatever. They came in, took over, and the guy that signed me, who was a wonderful man, Peter Gell, just an elegant, wonderful man, left to go to the Metropolitan Opera. And then, I was like, well, now what the heck am I going to do? And so I cried for I'd say about a month.
That's a lot of crying. That's, oh my goodness.
No, not a lot, but you
I didn't even cry that much during Holocaust Remembrance Month.
I have a favorite hat of mine. It's like my good luck hat, and it's a big fur hat. It's not unlike what you would wear when you're walking down the street in the winter. It looks like something you would wear, a big round fur hat. I put on my lucky hat, and I went in and got myself a new manager, and that new manager put me with 2 producers, and the rest is Dark Side of the Moon. And I love that record. And that record isn't really a Mary Fall record. That was all 3 of us. That was my producers too. They had a really clear vision of what they wanted, and we had a great time. And I'm still working with one of those producers to this day, Mark Doyle, and he is my music director. We've been working, live shows and records. He's produced my Christmas album, which I never wanted to make a Christmas record because
I never wanted to make a Christmas record either.
But anyway, my husband forced me to make that record, and then I ended up loving the whole process. And then this latest record that we've done, and Mark keeps my band together for me, and I'm lucky, I'm lucky to finally be in a place, because, you have successes in life, like huge successes, like getting signed to, my God, Sony Classical, but if you're alone, you still come home to an empty apartment, and you don't have someone to share that with. And so now I have my husband, so I have creative fulfillment, and I have someone to come home to who really, I wouldn't still be doing this now if it weren't for him, because he is my biggest supporter and my biggest fan, and he pushes me. So I can get lazy, and he's just like, no, you got to do this now. You got to do another thing, and he will, what is it? I have to say, I am looking up at my thing, and I have studied the joys of Yiddish my entire life, because it's the best language, and everybody thinks, how does that shiksa know all those words? But it's like, that term "hocking a chinik"?
Of course, yes. Yeah, stop hocking my chinik with that. The banging.
I tried it. Okay, all right, stop it. That's what he does. Okay, and it's like, for those of you out there, that's banging on a teacup, basically, right? Yeah.
A plate. You're banging on a plate. You're making a noise, and you're annoying me. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So yeah.
Wait. Is Rich Jewish?
No, he's not.
Oh, so you just happen to have that book because it's a wonderful.
From years ago, I bought it. Like, oh God, maybe 25 years ago, and I just, because it's again, I love languages, and I just, because it's just that everything in Yiddish sounds like what it's saying, and it's just a fun language. So it's and I had a wonderful boss years and years ago who would use all that terminology, and so I could converse with her, and she'd be like, that old fucker. Okay, so I loved it, and I still.
Maybe there's a Yiddish album coming up, and you've done the cover thing, you've done the Dark Side of the Moon.
It was so interesting for me. I finally got my ancestry done, and I looked at it, and it was like, somewhere back there, I have like that much Jewish, and I'm like, I knew it. Okay, I knew it. And I'm like, yes. Okay, so
do you ever feel guilty? Do you ever feel really miserable? You've got some Jewish in you. I'm telling you, right? That's everything.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, that's that's my story. And you know, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I'm thinking about maybe it'll be the Molly Craig thing, or I made a little classical record. Maybe I'll do more of that. I don't know. I love playing with this band now, and we're going all over the country, and we're playing these beautiful venues, and it's just the most fun. I love. I mean, the solo shows are okay, but I always call those calorie burners, because it's all just me, and because my husband made me go out and play by myself, which I was also very frightened to do. I just didn't thought, oh God, Rich, I'm not a good enough guitar player. And he said, nobody cares. I started telling stories about my life, and I never did that before. I never spoke with October Project, ever. They didn't want us to speak because they felt, as our A&R guy at Epic used to say, when you guys talk or are funny, it's like a cup of coffee after an acid trip. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, whatever.
I wouldn't know. I've had a stomach acid trip from coffee.
I kind of understand the analogy, wouldn't know. And then he made me go out and do it. So it was sort of, at the beginning, it was sort of like a, look over here, see the shiny object? So I started being funny and telling stories about my family and my life, and just to make the show more interesting. And
people don't expect you to be funny in music, because you got the darkness and the voice and the heavy and those serious songs and stuff. And you tell a joke, it lands. Because people, she can be a funny person too. We like this. It works.
No. In fact, in order to get my confidence about playing alone, I started to study comics on stage, and I started to study them in like how they pace and what they do, because it's just them. They have to hold a giant audience in the palm of their hand, and it's how they would pace a story. And I learned a lot from that. And
you probably shouldn't have studied Gilbert Gottfried so much, because this next fucking song I'm going to sing for you is about this. No, I'm kidding.
I studied the ones that have that immense control, legs. They call it legs, and command of the stage. And you have to walk out there. And what I said to my husband, the first time I was booked in a very big, beautiful club all by myself, a place where you don't do a solo show. You should have a band, but I did it. And I thought, oh, Mary, you're going to have to. And I remember backstage by myself, I just thought, just going to get bigger and bigger and make myself bigger. And I thought, when I went out on stage, in my mind, I looked out, I took a moment and I looked out at the crowd, and I thought, you will be mine. You are mine. Like, you have to think, I'm sorry, but that is how
I've been on stage. I do this. This is.
You know what I'm talking about? You are mine. Okay. And that you're the boss now. You're in control of that place. And if you do that, then you don't get nervous. You take your time on everything. It's a lot of things. It's like, don't speed things up. Take your time. Even if you're drinking a glass of water, take your time.
It takes forever I'm not joking. It takes forever for a performer to learn that. Because you figure, oh my God, I take 2 extra seconds drinking, I'm going to lose them. But now I gargle. And I just literally go on I gargle, I spit, I gargle again, and then I tell the next joke. Yes.
You don't know that until you've learned it and you've made the mistake. You don't know that it's, oh God, yeah. And you learn a lot from bad shows too. There was a guy I saw years ago, a friend of a friend. I got dragged to the show, and he was awful. His music was awful. His patter was awful. But he had this way of moving on stage where he did things very slowly. Like if he opened something up, he would just take it, and he'd do it like it was mesmerizing. And I thought, you learn, it's weird. You learn things. So I've learned a lot over the years, and I wish I could go. I wish that I was 25 and don't know what I know now, but I wouldn't have the life experience to bring to the music that I sing. And you know,
I wish I were 7 days old and still had my foreskin. It doesn't have. You have to go from where you are to where you're going. This is
exactly.
Now, where Mary Fall is going to be is on this Wednesday night, May 31st. You can see at a lovely venue called City Winery. It's going to be happening. The doors open at 6:30 p.m. Thank you, Rich, for telling us that. The show itself starts at 7:30 p.m.
Yes.
Of course, and it's not just her with a, not that it would be terrible to see just her with a guitar, but it's a band.
Wonderful band, wonderful band. And again, I always say, great venue, great room, great food, great wine. And if you're already in New York, it's at 7:30. You can go after work, have a drink, have food. So yeah, come and see me.
And also, please don't forget, you're going to want to get her album. It came out a couple of months ago. It's still pretty fresh.
Can't get it out of my head. And it's on Spotify. It's on Spotify and all the streaming services. And I'm maryfahl.com, FAHL. And yeah, this has been fun. I enjoyed this.
I'm so glad. It has been an absolute delight. Give us, please, just one more word of Yiddish to bring us out of this.
Oh my God. Oh, what would I do? Well, there's a common one because I always say, well, I say to my husband, either I'm feeling verklempt when we both cry, because we cry too easily, both of us. It's like I'm getting a little verklempt, or I'll say, "Ugh, Rich, you're getting all mishugana about this." It's like, you're mishugana, right, Rich? Right, Rich. He never gets it right. So, but or it's like oh, what a mishigas. And he calls it mishigash. It's like, no, honey, it's mishigas. It's mishigas.
Yeah.
Or I'll say like, no, we should have him over for dinner. He's mishpucha.
Oh, mishpucha, beautiful. It's obviously to our bashert. You are meant for each other. There's another word right there.
Okay. So anyway, yes, I do love Yiddish. So.
And we love you, Mary Fahl. It has been absolutely just a machaya to have you with us in the neighborhood. Go see her this Wednesday night and go get her new album. Can't get it out of my head. Mary Fahl, what else can I say but shalom to you?
Shalom. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.